In the gas-lit gloom of Victorian England, where the Thames whispered secrets of the drowned and the fog clung to cobblestones like a shroud, a clandestine empire flourished among the tombs. This was the realm of the grave robbers, those nocturnal predators who prowled churchyards and potters' fields, their spades slicing through sacred soil to unearth the freshly buried. Not mere thieves of trinkets, these resurrectionists, as they styled themselves with grim irony, stole the very vessels of the dead, bundling bloated forms in burlap sacks to hawk at the back doors of anatomy theaters. Driven by the insatiable hunger of medical science for dissection fodder, this trade turned cemeteries into marketplaces of mortality, where a pauper's corpse fetched 7 shillings and a noble's might command guineas aplenty. From the teeming slums of Whitechapel to the dour kirkyards of Edinburgh, grave robbing wasn't just a crime. It was a grotesque ballet of desperation, innovation, and depravity, claiming thousands of bodies over decades and etching terror into the national psyche. Families bolted iron cages over loved ones' graves, watchmen patrolled with blunderbusses, and whispers spread of corpses stirring in transit, their rigor-stiffened fingers clawing at sackcloth as if to accuse their captors. This is the unvarnished chronicle of that underworld, a saga of flesh traffickers, ambitious surgeons, and a society haunted by the fear that death offered no repose. The roots of this macabre commerce burrow deep into the Enlightenment's fertile soil, when anatomists like the brothers Hunter, William and John, those pioneering Scots, began peeling back the human form to map its mysteries. In the late 1700s, London's St. Thomas's Hospital and Edinburgh's Royal Infirmary became cathedrals of the knife, their lecture halls echoing with the scrape of scalpels on bone. But the law, ever parsimonious with progress, shackled supply. The 1752 Murder Act decreed that only the bodies of executed felons could be handed to surgeons for public dissection, a deterrent meant to make the gallows more fearsome. Hanged in chains at Newgate or Tyburn Tree, these unfortunates, pickpockets, coiners, murderers, were a meager trickle, perhaps a dozen a month in London alone, their entrails spilled before jeering crowds while medical students jostled for a view. Demand swelled as universities multiplied. By 1800, over 500 anatomy pupils clamored for cadavers in the capital, each requiring multiple bodies per term to master the flaying of skin from muscle or the evisceration of thoraxes. Enter the resurrectionists, opportunistic navvies, ex-soldiers, and even medical porters who saw in fresh graves not tragedy, but tender. A typical night's work unfolded under a moon veiled by pea soup fog, the air thick with the charnel reek of decomposition. Take St. Pancras Old Churchyard, that overgrown acre in Somers Town, a favorite haunt for the trade in the 1810s. Here, amid tilting headstones etched with cherubs and epitaphs promising eternal sleep, a gang of 3, let's call them Jack, Tom, and the lookout Bess, slipped through the lich gate after midnight. Jack, broad-shouldered from dock labor, carried the mute's tools, a short-handled spade with muffled edges wrapped in baize to deaden thuds, a crowbar honed to slip coffin nails like whispers, and hooks on poles to snag and haul without full exhumation. Tom, wiry and quick-fingered, scouted the plots, favoring those dug less than 48 hours prior. Any longer, and the body might bloat or blacken, slashing its value. Bess, a washerwoman by day, perched on a wall with a bull's-eye lantern hooded to a slit, her ears pricked for the tread of charnel house watchmen or the bay of mastiffs chained to mausolea. They selected their prize, the grave of Eliza Thorne, a seamstress dead of consumption at 23, interred that afternoon in a pauper's box of worm-eaten pine. The soil, still loose and friable, yielded to Jack's spade with reluctant sighs, clods tumbling into the pit like accusations. 10 minutes to breach the surface, another to lever the lid, crackling like dry bones underfoot. There lay Eliza, shrouded in homespun, her face waxy pale in the lantern's glow, lips parted as if mid-prayer. No time for sentiment. Tom looped ropes under her oxters and hocks, and with a grunt, they winched her free, sackcloth muffling the scrape of heels on gravel. Clothes stayed put. Stealing apparel was felony, but the corpse itself, mere property of no one, ripe for resale. Bundled and slung over Jack's shoulder like a sack of flour, Eliza's form swayed as they melted into the mews, dodging night soil men and link boys hawking flames. By dawn, at the Surgeon's Hall in Lincoln's Inn Fields, a discreet knock yielded Dr. Abernethy, lantern-jawed professor who palped the chill flesh through the sacking, nodded at its freshness, and palmed over 10 shillings, enough for a week's gin and grub. Eliza's journey ended on a marble slab, her secrets splayed under tallow dips as students incised from clavicle to pubis, charting the ravages of phthisis in her lungs. Such hauls were routine, but peril shadowed every spadeful. Watchmen, often bribed with a cut or a bottle, turned feral when crossed. In 1817, at Spa Fields, a gang fleeing with a barrow-load of bodies triggered a riot, constables' truncheons cracking skulls amid cries of "resurrection pigs." Families, too, innovated defenses. The mortsafe, those hulking iron grids bolted over coffins, cost a guinea to rent for 6 weeks until putrefaction deterred thieves. In wealthier precincts like Kensal Green, spring-loaded traps, hair triggers wired to blunderbusses, lurked beneath sod, fouling shots peppering intruders with buckshot. One resurrectionist, half-hanged Smith, lost an eye to such a device in 1823, his mates abandoning him bleeding in the brambles as parson bells tolled matins. Yet the trade adapted, burrowing tunnels from adjacent plots or posing as mourners to case burials, memorizing shroud colors and grave depths. Women like Black Anne of Shadwell ran fencing operations from gin shops, haggling prices while suckling babes, their networks spanning from Spitalfields to Southwark. Edinburgh, that city of enlightenment and execution, birthed the trade's most infamous apex, the saga of Burke and Hare, whose pivot from robbery to red-handed murder in 1828 stained the profession with fresh gore. William Burke, a navvy from Donegal with a brogue thick as peat, and William Hare, a canal digger turned slumlord, met in the festering winds of the West Port. Their den, a flea-ridden tenement at 17 Gippsland Row, reeked of urine and despair, lodgers, mostly vagrants, too poor for coffins. When an elderly tenant, old Donald, croaked owing Hare a week's rent, opportunity knocked. Stuffing the mouth with straw to staunch fluids, they trundled the body by gig to Robert Knox's anatomy rooms on Surgeon Square, that hive of scalpel-wielding ambition. Knox, a dashing lecturer with a flair for showmanship, examined the cadaver, still supple, no rigor, and disbursed £7 10 shillings without a blink, his dissections drawing crowds of toffs and tradesmen alike. The windfall ignited a frenzy. Over 10 months, the duo claimed 16 souls, all sourced from the city's underbelly. Their method, dubbed Burking by the broadsheets, was a masterpiece of stealthy savagery. No bludgeons or blades to leave telltale wounds, just suffocation. Burke's knee on the chest, Hare's hand sealing nose and mouth until struggles ceased in a final rattle. Victims trickled in like strays. Mary McDougall, Burke's common-law wife, aided in luring a salt tramp named Big Susie Campbell, a 200-pound behemoth plied with whiskey in the parlor before being pinned on the pallet. her bulk no match for the pair's practiced crush. The body, warm and pliant, fetched 11 shillings from Knox, who flayed her in a lecture the next day, students oblivious to the faint scent of porter on her breath. Then came the jewel. Mary Campbell, no relation to Susie, a Canongate prostitute of rare beauty, her auburn curls and alabaster skin preserved by youth. Enticed with promises of laundry work, she awoke gagged on the floorboards, burked in minutes. Knox's hall overflowed as he demonstrated her pristine viscera. One pupil, a Leith surgeon's son, fainting at the sight, haunted by tavern memories of her laugh. Daft Jamie Wilson, a simpleton beloved for his fiddle-playing in the grass market, proved tougher. He fought like a cornered ferret, biting Hare's thumb to the bone before succumbing. Dissected the morrow after, his tattoos, a thistle and anchor, drew gasps from the tiered benches, the crowd murmuring of the missing idiot as Knox's lancet traced his jugular. Discovery dawned with Anne McDougall's kin, hammering at the door to find Margaret Docherty's remains. Burke's final victim, a Donegal flower seller, stuffed under the bed like offal, her clay pipe still clenched in rigor. Hare squealed for crown immunity, his testimony a torrent of treachery. Burke did the pinning, I the plugging, he drawled in the High Court, Edinburgh's toll booth seething with fury. Burke, hanged on the 28th of January, 1829, before 30,000 baying souls on the Lawn Market, dangled in a noose of Irish flax, his neck snapping clean, unlike half-hanged Smith, who danced for 20 minutes. Post-mortem, the mob surged as his corpse carted to the university, where anatomist Alexander Monroe Tertius wielded the saw, preserving Burke's skeleton articulated on wires, a didactic spectre grinning from a glass case to this day. Hare slithered free, his face pelted with ordure as he fled north. Legends claim he drowned in a mill lade or lived as a cobbler in Bolton under alias, but truth favors anonymity in poverty's grip. Knox, unscathed by law but scorched by scandal, retreated to Hackney, his lectures shunned as tainted meat. The Burke-Hare infamy rippled south, birthing copycats and clampdowns. In London, the Italian boy case of 1831 unmasked John Bishop and Thomas Williams, waterside resurrectionists who escalated to slaughter. Their victim, Carlo Ferrari, a 14-year-old beggar from Naples, lured with a shilling for bootblack, met eternity in a Bethnal Green hovel, bludgeoned with a mallet and bled into a tub like veal. The body, chilled in a horse trough to stiffen for authenticity, sold for 8 guineas to St. Thomas's, where prosectors puzzled at the lad's olive hue until a street cry of "murder" linked the dots. Bishop's confession chilled the Old Bailey. "We'd sourced nigh on 1,000, some dug, some done," he admitted, detailing a tally of itinerants drowned in the Thames or starved in cellars. Hanged at Newgate, there gibbeting, bodies iron-shackled to posts on the riverbank, drew scavengers and sightseers, crows pecking at eyes while wherries ferried gawkers for a penny. These atrocities catalyzed the Anatomy Act of 1832, a legislative scalpel slicing the trade's throat. Penned by Henry Warburton, a Quaker MP with a chemist's precision, it decreed unclaimed paupers from workhouses, those buried at parish expense, bequeathed to the surgeons, no consent required. Inspectors prowled poorhouses, tagging the indigent with lead discs. Anatomical subject number 47. The act starved resurrectionists, their prices plummeting from guineas to groats as supply flooded. Yet diehards persisted. In 1835, a Soho gang unearthed the actress Fanny Kelly from Paddington Cemetery, her diva form, preserved by arsenic cosmetics, fetching a premium despite the bloom of decay. Prosecuted under the new law, they served Botany Bay terms, their floggings a cautionary lash. Beyond the metropole, the trade's tendrils snaked rural. In rural Yorkshire, the 1824 Doncaster dozen saw a sexton syndicate rob St. George's, selling to Leeds Infirmary via canal barge disguised as coal. One haul, a plaguey potter's family of 4, arrived bloated from summer heat, leaking ichor that fouled the hold. The surgeon, mistaking putrescence for pathology, dissected anyway, his students retching at the maggot-riddled bowels. Scotland's lowlands fared worse. At Leith, Resurrection Jack McLean tunneled under walls with a miner's pick, emerging in Canongate vaults to pluck incumbents like plums. Caught in 1819 with 3 sacks, a midwife, a miller, and a suicide, the Tolbooth jury condemned him to transportation. His last words a curse on the flesh peddlers in white smocks. The resurrectionists' toolkit evolved with cunning macabre. The Lazar House dodge involved bribing hospital orderlies to warehouse bodies in ice-lined cellars, delaying burial for a cut-rate snatch. Scent-masking pomanders, spheres of myrrh and camphor warded off the blue bottle's buzz during cartage. In advanced circles, preservers like Charles Waterton injected veins with quicksilver or tannin to halt rot, turning corpses into leathery curios worth double. Dissection halls, those sanctums of science, brimmed with horrors. At Guy's Hospital, John Hunter's collection included a giant's femur beside a dwarf's skull, all sourced illicitly. Lectures commenced at cockcrow to evade patrols, gas jets hissing as saws whirred through sternums, the air a miasma of formalin and feces. Students, green as the dissecting room frogs, wagered on viscera weights or sketched ganglia by candle, their aprons crusted with cerumen from ear canals. Society's recoil birthed folklore's fiends. Broadsheets sensationalized The Lady in the Sack, a 1812 tale from Bunhill Fields where a Robbie's widow swore her husband's ghost pursued the thieves, his translucent form moaning, "Give me my clay," through Holborn fog. Pamphlets like The Resurrectionist's New Year's Gift, 1827, caricatured snatchers as skeletal ghouls in top hats, spades akimbo amid tumbling coffins. Literature lapped it up. Thomas Hood's Faithless Sally Brown, 1826, versified a sailor resurrecting his drowned lass, only to find her wed anew, her heart carved out metaphorically by betrayal. Mary Shelley, scarred by her husband's circle's anatomical dabblings, wove Frankenstein's abomination from grave-robbed limbs, the creature's yellow eye a nod to jaundiced cadavers spied in St. Bartholomew's. Dickens, ever the social surgeon, populated Oliver Twist with resurrection men lurking in pauper pits, their barrows creaking like judgment's cart. Even as the act withered the trade, echoes lingered into the fin de siècle. In 1890's Whitechapel, amid Ripper fog, opportunists exhumed cholera victims from Ratcliffe Highway, hawking them to quack vivisectionists peddling nerve tonics. The last gasp came in 1902 at Highgate Cemetery, where a sexton uncovered a tunnel honeycombing the catacombs, relics of a bygone syndicate. Museums hoard mementos, the Pathological Society's jars of sourced organs, Burke's death mask with its hanged man rictus, Hunter's flayed colossus preserved in gin. These artifacts whisper of an era when medicine's march trampled the dead, progress paid in pilfered peace. Yet the grave robber's true legacy is unease's undercurrent, the chill that quickens when passing a moonlit mound, the dread that earth might shift beneath. In Victorian vaults or modern columbaria, the resurrectionists prowl memory's margins, their spades a faint scrape in dreams. They teach that humanity's quest to conquer death often desecrates it, turning sanctuaries into slaughterhouses and the departed into dollars. As you tread tonight's streets, heed the silence of the graves. They hold not just bones, but grudges, waiting for the next hand to disturb their dust.